You know, when the war started, I was woke up by rockets uh, because they started to bombing peaceful towns and cities. They started to bombing not the military facilities, not the military bases, the civil districts, yeah, and the first victims of the war, and the most victims of the war still as ordinary civilian people, not the militaries.
I want to get information about this conflict directly from you on the ground, but some of my questions they're going to be about your feelings and your, personal things as well. So don't be afraid to tell us what you're thinking,
Okay.
even if you know that everyone maybe in Ukraine doesn't agree with you or something like that. It doesn't, that doesn't matter. When we started planning this, we're doing this at like 7 a.m. on a Sunday because when I texted you asking to do the show, you told me you might not be alive to do this later. Is that really how you feel these days?
Yeah, and I think it's not only my feeling. There is no any safe place in Ukraine because every inch of Ukraine soil, every town, every city, and every village is vulnerable for Russian rockets, for Russian artillery. Even as you know, maybe even today, one of the westernmost regions of Ukraine, the Lviv region, was hit by a Russian rocket. There are more than 30 deaths on a field where some kind of aid which is coming from European countries, from Western countries, is collected and later sent into central part of Ukraine or eastern part of Ukraine. So every inch of my homeland, every inch of Ukraine is vulnerable to Russian attacks. So nobody is safe here. Nobody is 100% protected from Russian missiles or from Russian artillery barrages.
I know the situation is chaotic and changing, so I'll just plow through questions and conversation until you have to go. You started as a war journalist, right? You've seen war firsthand before. You've seen bad times, but now the bad times, you thought you could probably just leave on a flight from Syria and come back home and the bad times would be over there, but now the bad times are in your own neighborhood. Is that kind of how this transition happened for you suddenly and overnight, it seems?
When the war started, I was woke up by rockets, by rockets which were intercepted by Ukrainian anti-missile system right under my roof, right under the roof of a house
Wow.
I lived. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. For me and I think for all the Ukrainians, it was the most treacherous and the most cowardly war. Because they started to bombing peaceful towns and cities. They started to bombing not the military facilities, not the military bases, not the not the plants, not the tank plants or planes plants. They started to bombing and shelling the civil districts. The civil districts, yeah, and the first victims of the war, and the most victims of the war still as ordinary civilian people, not the militaries, not the officers or soldiers. So the war started for me at 5 o'clock, as for any other Ukrainians, because it was started all over central and eastern Ukraine. It's not just one spontaneous attack on Kyiv. No, it was a lot of rockets and a lot of bombs falling on a lot of buildings all over the central and eastern part of Ukraine. So the first day of the war was really, really hard for me because I decided that I need to go to my work and I need to make my radio show and I need to tell people what's going on. But it was for me it was really hard. It was, I think, hardest day of my life. But when I finished my job and I went home, during the way back home, when I was in a subway, in a Kyiv subway, and even in underground, even in subway, even in train, you can listen, you can hear the bombs and you can rockets which is falling on your city. So I decided that I must join territorial defense units, that I must join the army, and to protect my homeland, to protect my loved one, to protect our nation, and to protect our freedom. So when I went home, when I came back home, I took my journalist helmet. I had a journalist helmet with a huge white letters press on it, and I took my daughter's black marker and I painted all these white letters with black. So I remade my my press helmet into the war helmet. That's this, you know, it was some kind of interpreting myself, reinventing myself, remaking myself from a journalist to a soldier. Next day, I took this helmet and came to one of the headquarters of the territorial defense units, sign the contract, no salary. I have no any money from army, no salary, only food and the shelter. So I signed this contract. I took a assault rifle and came to my platoon, and for more than 2 weeks I'm a soldier.
Wow, that's quite a transition. I think when they make the movie about you, they're gonna have that scene with you painting your press helmet over with the black marker. You know, that's the transition right there. That's quite a visual, man. In your territorial defense units, are there ranks, or is everyone just kind of grouped together?
You know, our units, territorial defense units, were all manned by volunteers. So there are all the people around me and all the people in our territorial defense units. They are, you know, civilians. We were civilians. Now, of course, we are all soldiers. We were civilians. We don't have right now. We don't have any ranks. Even we don't have, you know, any orders to wear our uniform only. So if you want to, you still can wear your civilian clothes or put on your civilian boots. It's not, now it's not prohibited for us to do it. It's not prohibited for us to have beards or to have long hairs or to have earrings or something like that. But you know, we are even in these conditions, we are a real army already, because we have
Sure.
assault guns, assault rifles. We have, you know, I have ammo in all my pockets, or almost in all my pockets. The guy who is in a position near me, he was an IT. He's a real young guy, and he was a programmer or some kind of IT guy, and now he's, you know, he's in charge of grenade launcher, of RPG. So he had not only assault rifle, he had also an RPG and a bag full of grenades for RPG. So yeah, we are civilians. We were civilians, but now we are soldiers, and we are ready to, you know, very soon we will need to change all our civilian clothes, and we, of course, we will be taught how to differentiate ranks and how to answer to orders of our officers. But now it's, you know, we have some kind of preparatory period. Of course, we not just, you know, we are not sitting on the barracks and waiting for some, you know, for Russians to come. No, we are working on checkpoints. We are patrolling the streets. We are, you know, sometimes we are going to shooting range to shoot on targets and to practice in some kind of military things. So it's real army, but you know, it's real army in evolution.
Yeah, like it's being made. The airplane is being built on the way down, from the sound of it, right? Yeah, unbelievable. So did you essentially just wait in line to get a Kalashnikov one day? Was it like, okay, I'm joining the army. Go wait. You said you signed a contract. Is it like you sign and then here's your stuff? I mean, it's got to be kind of rough distributing rifles to tens of thousands of people in a small
I've just signed
period
it.
of time.
I've showed guys from the headquarters my Ukrainian ID. I've signed this contract. In this contract, I wrote down my name, my address, my phone number, and in an hour or in an hour and a half, they gave me an assault rifle and a few dozens ammo for assault rifle. And the guy who instructed the people who never have any deals with guns in their lives, how to maintain it, how to load it, how to reload it, and how to use it. It was about maybe 15 minutes or half an hour.
Oh my goodness! Wow. And are you originally from Kyiv? Then
No, I was born in
hometown?
Kharkiv. I was born in Kharkiv.
Okay.
It's the second largest city of Ukraine. It is one of most one of the cities which is which suffering right now most than our cities. It was a lot of rockets and artillery barrages fell on my city and still falling on my city. My parents were in Kharkiv when the war started, and they've been there for a week. Last few days, they've been there without any electricity, without water, without heat, without food. And a lot of people right now, there are, tens of hundreds, tens of thousands of people in Ukraine in such dire conditions, without medicines, without water, without food, without electricity. They're hiding somewhere in the basement if they have time to get to the basements. So lucky for me and for my parents, we managed to evacuate from Kharkiv after few Grad rockets get into the house into the house which they lived in.
Wow, so rockets hit your house. They actually hit your parents' house.
It's not the house in American sense. It's a multi-story house. It's 20 floor.
Sure, like an apartment building.
Yeah, it's apartment building. They have a flat in this building, and lucky for us, lucky for them, Grad rockets did not hit this flat, but rockets hit our flats in this building and almost completely destroyed 2 or 4 buildings close to my parents' flat.
Wow, that's so terrifying. That's unbelievable. Did you expect this from Russia? I mean, of course, when the military was building up around the border, it became obvious. But was it a surprise for people in Ukraine that Russia was trying to retake the country?
I think, a lot of people here were preparing for it. Even friends of mine, even few of my relatives, they were preparing for things like this. They were making papers for buying guns, and they are collecting ammo in their houses. Some people making some food preparations, buying canned meat or canned beans and so on and so on. Some people tried to buy as much fuel and to storage it in some kind of garages and or even in their flats, waiting for Russians to come. But for another people, and there are also a lot of people like this, it was completely surprise. I can tell that I myself was not waiting for it. That it was complete surprise for me. But the scale of the attack and the brutality of the Russians, what we are doing right now, we're targeting and still targeting civilian districts and schools and hospitals. For that kind of brutality is surprising for me, because I was telling to one of the journalists, I was working in Iraq during Mosul offensive, when international community and local fighters were liberating Mosul from ISIS. So I saw a lot of people fleeing, a lot of ordinary civilian people fleeing Mosul and its surroundings. So even guys from ISIS, even with terrorists, even with jihadists, they let people out of Mosul and out of suburbs of Mosul. But Russians, they are worse than ISIS. They are not only use these people as shields, trying to hide under this shield from Ukrainian fire, but they also, they're sieging cities like Mariupol, starving people in the basements to death, or just targeting them by the artillery fire. They know for sure. You can watch fresh videos from Mariupol, for example, when you can see that tanks and bombs from planes were targeting, the buildings, the flats, the houses, not the military facilities, not the Ukrainian tanks, where, we're targeting, for sure, we're targeting first of all the civilians. That's why I said they're much worse than even ISIS.
That's unbelievable. I mean, that's really, really something else. I didn't know that ISIS was letting people out of those cities as well. I guess I wasn't really focused on that, but it's just unbelievable that the Russians are focused on civilians deliberately. It just seems totally unnecessary to me. What do you wish the world, especially the West or Americans, understood about this conflict that maybe isn't getting through on mainstream media? Because there is a lot of coverage, but maybe there's some gaps that you see.
I see, the hugest gap, as I can see, it's totally misunderstanding that this war is not a war against Ukraine only. If we can take any history book about Second World War, we can found that when Hitler invaded Czechoslovakia, all the Western world, not the world, but a lot of people in the Western world, including governments of great powers of that time, they really thought that it would be enough for Hitler to took Czechoslovakia or Poland, for example, and he will be, satisfied with it. No, it will not. And of course, if they can defeat us, the other world will be next. So it's time to stand together. It's time to be an allies in this war. It's time to stand for a freedom, for a democracy, for this is a war against humanity in our in our view, because Putin's Russia, it's completely against all the rules of modern world, all the values of democratic world. So they don't us to exist. I mean, Ukrainians, we really don't want us to exist. In Putin's mind, Ukrainians, it's some kind of misguided Russian people who imaged themselves as a separate nation. No, it's not. We are a separate nation. We don't want to be Russians. We want to have our homeland. We want to have our language, our culture, and our freedom. And we don't want to be a part of this bloody Russian world. But also, he wants you to be much less freer than you are now. He wants you to accept him as one of the leading powers of the world. So this is not only our war. It's it's the war of all free people against the people who hates freedom most.
Yeah, it certainly does seem that way, and I know that there's a lot of debate over this, whether he'll stop at Ukraine or whether this is something that's just the beginning of something else. Although, to your credit, to the people of Ukraine's credit, it doesn't seem to be going so well for him. I think he thought this would be a weekend adventure, and Now it looks like he's probably going to be looking for a way out that doesn't make him look weak. What do you think?
You know, I think it's in the Russian tradition. Since the Second World War, nobody in Moscow, nobody in Russian government even tried to count how many casualties they have. So they just gave an order, we need to take Kharkiv, or we need to take Kyiv. So they will send wave after wave, not even, looking how many of Russian these dogs died during this offensive. And they have a lot of people, and they have really a lot of people in Russia which are ready to be sent there, which are ready to kill Ukrainians, which are ready to target civilians. So, of course, we will fight them back. Of course, we will, as much as we can do, we will do it, But I think it's time for West countries to do a little bit more than they have already done.
Yeah. What do you think of the response of the world community? It sounds like obviously lacking a little bit. What about these foreign fighters coming in? What do you think about things like that?
These guys are real heroes, because these guys were the first people of the West, and not only of the West, of the East too, who are understood what is going on, and who really can tell you that this is a war against humanity, that this is a war for democratic values, as I told you. So I really appreciate these people. I want to thank them all, as I know these guys from Georgia, country of Georgia, from United States, from Poland, they are really brave persons, and they are really hitting hard the Russians close to Kyiv, and they have a few trophies, including tanks, including armored cars, and so on.
What's your opinion on the lack of a no-fly zone? Do you understand that Western countries are concerned that this could escalate things with Russia, or do you just think that's kind of a bullshit rationale that's going to get more people killed?
It's a really complicated question. First of all, of course, I can understand the fears of the Western world. I can understand that Biden or Boris Johnson or any other leader of a free world, they really don't want to be involved in a third world war. But the one thing they don't, use in their thinking, it's they cannot buy peace when they are not helping Ukraine with all the power they can. They don't buy peace. They just buy some time. Sooner or later, they will face Russians. They will face Russians in a battlefield in some way or another. So it's better the earlier you join the fight, the earlier this fight will end, and the less people will die during this fight. So I think it's time for them to decide. It's time for them to take a real stand and to join us in our fight against this this bloody horde.
What do you in Ukraine need from American or foreign citizens that's immediately actionable and doesn't involve the government? What can people listening to this do to help? Is there anything?
I'm really appreciated for all people in the Western world, in the United States, in Europe, in Japan, in any other countries for your help. We are receiving, a tons of aid from all over the world. For example, there are few trucks today came to Kyiv with clothes, boots, gloves, and so on from Spain and Portugal. I'm really I'm not joking. I'm really appreciated for all these people, because we don't have malls right now open. We don't have shops open. So this help, it's really big thing for us. Any kind of help, socks. Jackets, boots, even some kind of canned piece or something like this. It's all of this help is really needed things, and the help from the ordinary people, it's enough for us. and I really appreciate for all the folks who sends us money or who sends us clothes, food, and so on and so on. It's time not for an ordinary people, to intervene. It's time for a statesman, for a governments, for big military corporations to intervene in this conflict, in this war.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. If we're going to stem this tide, how is your peer group reacting? Was anybody around you that was maybe a guy your age not going to sign up for the military? Was anybody like, you know what, screw this, I'm out of here, that you know of?
I have a few friends of mine who went at the first days of war, who went with their kids and with their wives to a western part of Ukraine. It's a little bit less dangerous. It's not, completely safe. It's a little bit less dangerous to be in the western part of Ukraine than in central or in eastern part. And they went there to hide their wives and their kids from the rockets and from the artillery barrages. But when for last week we are trying to get back to Kyiv and to join territorial defense forces, because we don't want to join local territorial defense forces somewhere in Lviv or Ivano-Frankivsk, because they knows almost for sure that Putin will not send ground troops there, and they want to protect and they really want to fight Russian ground troops, and they really want to demonstrate their readiness to defend their country, their fury of this Russian invasion. So we're trying to get back and to join our fight against Russians.
So when you say you're fairly sure, or they're fairly sure, that Putin won't send ground troops to Western Ukraine, do you mean he'll attack it in other ways, like by air, or do you not think he will attack Western Ukraine at all?
He's already attacking Western Ukraine. He's already
That's
attacking.
what I thought, yeah.
With rockets, with bombs and other stuff. But he will not send. I hope so. He will not send troops in Western Ukraine because of his, as I can understand it, of his views on history of Ukraine. Because western part of Ukraine was not a part of Russian Empire. It was a part of Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was a part of the Habsburg Empire. So for him, the people who lives there, it's not Russians. He sees the people from Eastern Ukraine and from the Central Ukraine, as I told you, as some kind of misguided Russians. But people of the Western Ukraine, for him, it's it's just like some kind of aliens, some kind of completely foreign for him. So that's why I'm thinking he's not going to send ground troops there. But I can make mistakes as any other person.
Yeah, I can imagine now it's a little bit confusing as to what might actually happen. I'm interested in the fact that they're giving they say on the news they're giving every 18 to 60-year-old a weapon in Ukraine. Like, are there 60-year-old men fighting on these lines next to essentially 18-year-old kids?
Yeah.
Is that really what it's like?
18 years old, it's not a kid. It's 18-year-old in Ukraine.
Anymore.
It's grown up, and if you want to go to army, you should wait until you are 18. Yeah, there are a lot of, in my platoon, for example, there are a few guys in their 50s, or even in their late 50s, and there are guys, not even guys, even girls, by 18 year, 90, in the early 20s. Yeah, there are a lot of different people with different backgrounds, with different ethnicity, and it's for example, in our platoon we have one of the most famous Ukrainian playwrights, who was a theater star before the war. He's a huge person in the theater world, not only in Ukraine but in Eastern Europe also. And we have also guys who were, workers in some plants or in some factories, and we're serving together. We're sleeping in same conditions, eating the same food. It's all the borders now inside Ukraine now disappeared, completely disappeared. We are the one family. We are, the one unit right now. We are all doing the same work. We all protecting our country, doing the best all of us can to do it.
Yeah, that's a. It sort of sends chills up your spine thinking about the way that you are all being forced into this situation, but also the sense of unity that we see in the West on the news is really, it's something special. I mean, the resilience and the my family's Ukrainian, so take this as a compliment. Just how stubborn everybody over there really is. Nobody's giving an inch to the Russians is the feeling that we get, and you wouldn't want to. I think there's a common refrain in the United States that you wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of a Ukrainian at any time. And it really is something that is inspiring to most of the world. I assume that Russia is the exception to this. I think probably they don't find it so inspiring, but if they even know about it at all. Now, I know this kind of stuff can be difficult to hear. Believe me, I understand. But we have a lot of podcasts on all kinds of topics, like this one if you're into serious stuff. But we have shows on lighter topics too. Emmy-nominated comedians, billionaire investors, Fortune 500 CEOs, and, of course, organized crime figures, legendary Hollywood directors, Russian spies, arms traffickers, undercover agents, rocket scientists, neuroscientists, and more. So check out The Jordan Harbinger Show anywhere you find your podcasts. Now, back to the show. What do you feel about these Russian soldiers that are conscripted? In social media and on the internet, we see these really young guys that look like they were just plucked off of rural Siberia and put into Ukraine. And they're calling their parents on the phone and saying, yeah, I got captured in Ukraine. And the parents are like, what are you doing in Ukraine? They don't seem to know anything about this. Are you seeing any of these guys firsthand?
I saw a few videos like this, but our intelligence services, they also gave us another view on this problem. They intercept some talks of these people with their relatives, with their friends in Russia before these people get into in the hands of Ukrainian militaries. They were calling to their moms, they were calling to their brides and telling them, oh, I'm killing Ukrainians and I will have a lot of money for killing Ukrainians and I can steal something from their homes. I'm already found a money or a gold or something like this. And they have relatives, their moms, their pops, their brides and so on. They tell them, oh, kill as much as you can and bring as much as you can from Ukraine. They don't deserve to have anything. So I don't trust them when they tell them, we don't know that we were sent to kill Ukrainians. Of course we knew. Of course all of them in 100% knew that we were sent to Ukraine to kill, to destroy, to rape, and so on. I don't trust any word about, oh, we don't know. They said we were going to some kind of drills, and after that we found ourselves in Ukraine with live bullets, with real guns. Oh, please forgive us. No shit, you guys. I can't believe you.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's definitely that's not what we had seen over here, or at least nothing that I'd seen showed that they knew what they were doing. But that is interesting that they did, and it makes a little bit more sense than they just had no idea where they were. I mean, if you're on a battlefield, and you've got a mobile phone, you probably want to figure out where you are. First thing you do.
It's impossible. So we're coming to Ukraine, where commanders don't tell them that they are in Ukraine. What have you done right here? What are you doing here? You came with tanks, with rockets, with rifles, and you don't know that you came here as invaders and aggressors, as occupiers. It's impossible.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot of photos from Ukrainians that show they'll be walking through the woods and they'll find like a rocket launcher vehicle or an like a mine resistant vehicle or even a tank just sitting there, nobody in it. Are your forces seeing a lot of abandoned equipment that just ran out of gas or something or just doesn't work anymore?
Yeah, there are a lot of trophy equipment which was left, by Russian forces. First of all, it's because of of the work of our special forces. These guys are destroying the fuel cars which are heading from Russia to fuel the tanks and all our vehicles. Because without a fuel, all these tanks, all these rocket launchers, and so on, it's just rusty pieces
Furniture.
of
Yeah.
metal. They're useless, completely useless. But also there is such a thing as Ukrainian spring. It's really cold now in Ukraine. It's really cold. It's freezing temperatures, and where they don't have a lot of these occupying troops. They don't have warm places to rest. They don't have warm places to sleep. They don't have hot food, so they just leave their equipment, just leave their vehicles, weapons, and running away in somewhere when they think they can found some kind of heat, some kind of shelter, some kind of food, and something like that.
Yeah, I've heard that a few of them have gotten discovered in Poland just trying to blend in with everybody else. And then some Ukrainians will say, hey, this guy, he's Russian for sure. Because I guess it's quite obvious depending on the situation. And then they end up getting arrested. I've heard some folks say that they've been arresting Russians in Poland. Some were agents that are probably designed to look at refugees, but some of them seem like they probably were fighting and then decided, screw this, I'm going to Europe.
I don't hear anything about these Russians who are trying to escape to Europe, but yeah, you're right. I can tell if this person Russian or not, and almost anyone in Ukraine can tell if this person Russian or not. We have some kind of words in our Ukrainian language which cannot be pronounced by Russian at all. We have it's just, even if you are going through Kyiv at night through checkpoints, almost on every checkpoint, the guys who are guarding the city can ask you, please say Polyanitsa. And for Russian, it's almost impossible to pronounce this word. And that's why...
What is it? Polyanitsa?
Polyanitsa.
Polyanitsa.
Yeah.
That's hard.
You will be shot at the checkpoint, immediately.
Hopefully I don't have a Russian accent. I will just say, I'd have to say, excuse me, I don't speak Ukrainian or Russian. Yeah. Yikes. What does it mean?
It's
that word?
Some kind of bread which is baked on special occasions.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look that up. I don't know why I'm gonna practice that, but I'm going to. Now, how do you feel about the Russians that aren't soldiers? The everyday Russians sitting at home. What do Ukrainians generally feel about them? Do you think they know what's going on, or do you think they're just brainwashed and under a media blackout because of Putin?
There is no, or we weren't before the last days, real information blackout in Russia. If you want to have information, guys, we are living in the 21st century. You can get any information you want. Of course, a lot of people in Russia, millions of people, maybe tens of millions of people, are really, really supporting this war because for a long years, I think for 20 years, there was such a bloody propaganda in Russian medias about Ukrainians are not real people. They are just Russians who imagined themselves as a separate nation. Where language is funny, it's not real language. Where religion, it's not real religion. It's just some kind of spoiled Russian religion, where history, it's not real history. It was invented by some kind of Habsburg officers in Habsburg headquarters during First World War. It was, it was since I think it started even before the Soviet Union collapsed. But there is always some kinds of, very, very not I can say bad, but I think it's not the real word for it. There is I'm just trying to explain. Russians thought of themselves as a much higher human beings, much more quality human beings than Ukrainians. So and in their thoughts, in their thinking, they should have back. I don't know why we call it have back Kharkiv, Odessa, Kyiv, and our Ukrainian cities. Their propaganda told them and still tells them that these cities and these regions should belong to Russia only, because sometimes before it was occupied by Russian tsars, by Russian emperors, and so on. But nobody here in Ukraine really waits for Russian opposition from Russian some kind of pro-democracy forces to do anything. There is no such a thing like a real opposition. There are few people who are, I think, in a fury or in a fear or in a terror about what's going on in Ukraine. But I think most of the people in Russia were supporting the Russian invasion, the Russian occupation, or they don't give a shit about it. They're living with their only troubles and on their own interests.
Do you have relatives or anything in Russia?
Yeah, for a long years I've been working and living in Russia. I've returned back to Ukraine right after the revolution 8 years ago. I quit my job. I was a journalist in Russia. I quit my job and I left almost everything back in Moscow. I took only most necessary things with me. It was my laptop, my guitar, and my daughter. And with these three things, I returned. I came back to Ukraine and started a new life here in Kyiv.
So you said laptop, your guitar, and your daughter. That's a pretty good list, I suppose. Yeah. Good thing you didn't forget anything. If you've got friends or relatives in Russia, have you spoken to them since this conflict started?
Yeah, I have a few friends of mine and a few relatives of mine, and these people who are still in touch with me, with whom I have conversations sometimes, where we are supporting Ukraine. Of course, we can't say it loud. Of course, we can say it, in public. But we have so little people left because I have hundreds of people in Russia when I worked there, when I lived there, in my circle, but. This circle during these years he became lesser and less and less, and now there are only few people because all our people we came to to understanding that of course Ukraine should not be a different country. Of course you should back to Russia and so on. So I don't want to talk to people with such thoughts. It's much easier to me to stop talking to them than trying to persuade them in my views, trying to defend my views for them. No, I just quit talking with them. I just blocked them on Facebook, on our social medias, and deleted their phone numbers from my phone.
Yeah, of course, especially since they're at home watching this on TV and you're practicing at the shooting range and hoping that you don't get get killed in the middle of it. It's easy for these in these states we would say armchair quarterback, right? They're just sitting in their chair yelling at the television, and you're actually out there in the field. So it's a completely different situation for you than for them, and it would be infuriating to have to listen to that shit from people like them. What do you think the Russian objectives are? You know, what are they fighting for, in your opinion?
Putin and people all around him, they don't want us to exist, you know. They gave us a choice even before the invasion, and he always said only one thing. He said a lot of words, but with words masking the only one thing. He gave us a choice to declare ourselves Russians and to be a part of his rebuilding an empire, or to die. So we don't have choice to be Ukrainians. We don't have choice to be free. We don't have choice to be independent while Putin is in charge of Russian affairs, while he is in power. He gave us only two choices: to declare ourselves Russians and to be under his commands, or to die. So that's why we are fighting against him. That's why we are, you know, the civilian people in the tens of thousands taking guns in their arms to protect their homeland. Because we don't, as I told you, we don't want to lose our culture. We don't want to lose our independence. We don't want to lose our freedom. We don't want to lose, you know, our language. I want my country to be free. I want my country to be prosperous. I want my country to be independent from, you know, from this kind of bullshit in the head of Vladimir Putin. He's completely nuts. His views is almost nuts. I think not almost. He's already Nazi views. He don't want us to exist. You know, some guy or some girl from Western media who came here in Kyiv a few days ago asked me, is there any point in negotiation with Putin? I said, you know, it's like for Jewish people during 40s or late 30s of the previous century to negotiate with Hitler. We don't have, you know, some kind of points. They will both accept it, Hitler and Jewish people. So we are in the same position. We don't have any points. We want to live. He wants us to die. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like you're facing. Well, that's an interesting question, right? Because that brings up the point. That brings us to the idea. What do you think Putin will do if he wins? You think he will exterminate everybody who's Ukrainian?
You know what he's doing right now? You can see, you can just type Mariupol in Google and to see what's going on in Mariupol in Google News. It's already genocide. He don't want Ukrainian to exist, you know, as a separate nation. He wants us to be a part of Russia. If we don't want to be a part of Russia, he wants to destroy our culture, to destroy our language, to destroy our religion. As I told you, we don't have a choice to be Ukrainians. In his mind, we have a choice to be Russian or not to exist at all.
What if okay, so if he wins, that's the choice. What do you think he will do if he loses? What do you think he'll do?
I don't want to talk about it, but trust me, it would be worst scenario not only for Ukraine, but for the whole world. I don't want to talk about it because, you know, for sure I will not live till these times, because we will win or we will die. It's out of the question.
Why isn't the internet cut off in Kyiv? Are Ukrainian troops keeping it running? Because, I mean, all jokes aside, I think your internet is better than mine, and you're in a war zone, and I'm in Silicon Valley, like, plugged into my wall. So
yeah,
why do you have better internet than me? It's insane.
We have really nice internet and very cheap internet. Yeah. I think it's one of the fastest and cheapest internet in the world, and our providers, our internet companies are doing the best they can to make people connect to each other, to make people tied to each other in such their situation, in such a bad situation in Ukraine. And not only our people, not only our companies, as you knew already, Elon Musk sends a few of his Starlink terminals to Ukraine, and in some of Ukrainian cities, in some of Ukrainian towns, you can already join, you can already use his Starlink satellite internet free of charge. So thanks to him also.
Wow. Yeah, we will. Yeah, we'll see if Elon is interested in sending more. I'm sure that he's a guy who loves attention, and this is really working for him and for you. So it's a win-win for sure. Are you preparing to fall back at some point and lead guerrilla troops, or fight on the front lines as long as possible? Because it seems like you do at some point have a choice between whether to flip into guerrilla war or to stay in the trenches, so to speak. Or is that a decision that's not made by anyone around you?
We have a lot of trenches all around Kyiv. We have a lot of trenches inside Kyiv. So we are ready for a trench war. But at the same time, almost every house, almost every flat in Kyiv, it's now, it's some kind of little fortress, because all the people, or almost all the people which is still in Kyiv, were armed in some way or another. A lot of people have their guns, so if Russian will come, they will be, meet with a gunfire from every second window. If you don't have for some reasons rifle, or if you don't have assault rifle or something you can shoot with, people preparing Molotov cocktails. There are, I think millions of bottles of Molotov cocktails in Ukraine, ready to be used on Russian tanks and Russian troops. So we are preparing for a battle in trenches. We are preparing for protecting Kyiv and not letting these bastards to get into our capital. But we are also preparing for a guerrilla war inside our cities, inside Kyiv.
The world has, of course, been watching Ukraine and your president Zelensky. He's quite active in the media. Are you glad that he's staying in Ukraine? Does that matter for morale?
He's not my hero. He's not the person I voted for in last elections. But now
funny.
I think he's doing the best he can. I think he's he's a real inspiration for a lot of people, not only inside Ukraine but even outside Ukraine. He's I think I think a lot of people can agree with me. He's a brave guy, and he's doing the best he can, even better than best.
Yeah, it is a little bit funny. I'm imagining him, making the rounds, increasing soldier morale and shaking hands, and you tell him, hey, I voted for the other guy, but thanks for coming.
Yeah. It's normal in Ukraine. In Ukraine, it's normal. It's completely normal.
What is morale like? We've seen a lot of what us internet dorks might call shit posting from Zelensky, from the government. Are there jokes that are making the rounds? Are you guys doing some sort of dark comedy or anything like that, like we often see during hard times?
Moral are really high in Kyiv, and I think in our cities and in our towns of Ukraine too. Because, as I told you, we don't want to lose this war, and we are not preparing for a losing. We are preparing only for a winning. That's why, they can't take us alive. So we will make all the Ukraine one huge graveyard for them. So it's that's why we are, we are in some kind of high morale. It's we are not going to lose. We are not going to lose anyway.
Are there songs or movies or anything that people are talking about and referencing right now? A friend of mine who lived in Serbia during Slobodan Milosevic, he said that the resistance groups, they were all quoting Lord of the Rings movies because they felt like they were standing up to the Dark Lord, and they really ran with that for a long period of time.
Yeah, people of my platoon yesterday or day before yesterday watched in the night after the shift on the streets. They watched the movie Downfall. Maybe you know this movie. It's a German movie about last days of Hitler in his bunker in Berlin. So they were watching this movie. Imagine that we are watching movie not about Hitler but about Putin. So yeah, I think that's an answer for your question.
Yeah, definitely. How is the food out there at the front? Because we see these stories of Russian soldiers getting like 7-year-old meals in a bag that have been spoiled for 5 of the 7 years. What are you eating?
Oh, we have so much food from best restaurants, from the best shops. Volunteers and military ministry gave a lot of money to buy these foods. In our platoon, the guy came on the second day or on the third day of the war who said, I'm a chef in one of the luxury restaurants. The restaurant now is closed, so I want to be useful. Please let me join you. I will prepare food for you. And I've never eat so much different and tasty food in my life like I'm eating in the army. Right now, he's a guy. He's a chief from one of the most luxurious restaurant in Kyiv. I gave him 5 Michelin stars from the beginning. And all other guys in our platoon also made the same.
That's funny. You will probably never hear anyone say I've never had so much delicious food like I've had here in the army. I don't think anyone's ever said that before.
But this is our reality. This is our reality. And when I'm talking to guys from other platoons and when I'm talking to guys from other cities, this is the same. I talked to a guy who is in charge in a platoon in a small town in central Ukraine, and he said, we have some kind of guys from a local superb restaurant, and they're twice a day coming to us with a delivery truck and deliver to us the hot food, the hot dishes from right from the oven. And then he said also that he's eating the best food in his life.
That for some reason that strikes me as funny, and I don't mean to laugh at your situation, of course. It's amazing to me that everyone's coming together, but it's also just somehow funny that this amazing chef is able to make large quantities of food that are also still good. I don't know. There's just something kind of humorous about this guy whipping up eggs Florentine omelets in the middle of a battlefield. It's just, it really is. Inspiring is a word that I keep using, and I hate overusing that word, but it really is something like that. It really is. One day this is going to be in a history book. What should that book say? Because, you may not realize this in the moment, but you and men and women like you are the fathers and mothers of a new Ukraine, a new Ukraine fighting another war of independence. And is that something you think about? Do you think about being remembered in that way?
No. But if you ask me about what should be the name of, of a part of a history book about this war, I think its name should be the shortest one. Never trust a Russian. I think this is the first lesson for all the generations of the Ukrainians and all other people all over the world. You should never trust Russian, because if you trusted them, they'll do worst with you and with your families and with your cities and with your towns. I can't watch the photos and videos from my native, from my beloved city of Kharkiv without tears. For only 2 weeks, Russian destroyed more houses inside Kharkiv than Nazis destroyed during the whole Second World War. They worse than Nazis. They're doing the ugliest things you can imagine. They're doing the cowardest things you can imagine. It's impossible to describe what are they doing right now in Ukraine with our people, with our civilians, with our women, with our kids. It's just such a brutality, unimaginable brutality.
Kids are, of course, affected by these things. We often tend to think of them just as victims and not people who actually experience and have to process this kind of stuff. I know you have a daughter. How do you explain what's going on to her?
Oh, she's
How old is
already,
she?
you know, she's already grown up. She will be
Okay.
17 day after
Oh,
tomorrow. She will be
okay, sorry. I thought she was 7, not 17. That's a
17.
totally different story.
She will be 17 day after tomorrow, on 15th of March. It will be her birthday. So she understands anything. So she supports me, and of course it's out of the question. When I told her that I'm going to join army, there was no any tears or something like that.
Got it. How do you explain to younger relatives or just Ukrainian children what's going on? I mean, we see things in the news like one woman telling her 4-year-old that everybody was just playing a big game of hide and seek, and that's heartbreaking to see these people standing in the cold with children waiting in a 10-hour line to get over the border. That's the stuff that's making parents like me sit at home and get kind of choked up like I am right now, because I can imagine doing that with my own kid, and I just don't know what I would tell him.
I can't answer your question because lucky for me, I've never been in such of situation. I've never been forced to explain to someone from young ages what's going on in here. And if I need to, I don't know what kind of words I will use for it. I don't know. I'm so sorry. I can't answer this question. It's impossible
No
for me
worries.
to imagine it.
Yeah, no worries. What does it mean to be Ukrainian now? Do you think your national identity has changed? Like, do you identify as European, uniquely Ukrainian, something else?
Of course, we are Europeans. Of course, our future is with Europe only, with European values, with European freedom, with European liberties. Of course, we are Europeans. First of all, we are the people who already choose the freedom as one of our main parts of identity. This part of identity makes us Europeans. But at the same time, we are Ukrainians. It's these parts of our identity is not, in conflict with each other. You can be Polish and European. You can be Spanish and European. Why shouldn't we be Ukrainian and Europeans at the same time? It's not a problem. It's normal.
Yeah, I'm asking because like Russia clearly is trying to impose what their vision of Ukraine is on you by force, and I'm curious. Do you feel like the West is also imposing our vision on you? Like, hey, this is what Ukraine is. They're neutral,
This
or
is
they're
our
closer
choice.
to the east.
No,
It's your choice.
Not. Its choice wasn't made under the pressure from the United States or from Germany or from Great Britain. No, it's our choice, and it's our decision to be a part of European or Western civilization.
Mm-hmm. As the season changes, you mentioned earlier it's cold.
Yeah, it's really cold. It's really cold right now.
What will change in the nature of this war as it warms up? We were saying before, Putin, if he's going to go in there, his tanks are going to get stuck in the mud. Well, it's still cold, but it's not going to be cold for long. I lived in Ukraine for several months 20 years ago, and it gets just as warm as any other place in the spring and in the summer. At least I grew up in Michigan, so it gets at least as warm as Michigan. That's going to change everything, right? You're going to have a completely different environment.
Yeah, and
what will
tanks
that do
will
to the
stuck
battle?
the tanks and the trucks and all our equipment will stuck in the mud, and our guys with the javelins and lows and RPGs will burn the trucks and the tanks and all our of the equipment. So you will see it, I think, in a few days or maximum in a few weeks.
This might be a sensitive question, but what do you think of this Azov battalion, where it's like they're actually, very much looking like Nazis, and they've got their swastikas and their SS helmets and tattoos? Putin says, "Oh, I'm stopping these guys." What do Ukrainians think of these guys? Because obviously you're not all Azov battalion
First of all,
guys?
of course, we are not battalion. It's not, it's not a huge, huge division. Battalion, it's only few dozens of people. But I can tell you that one of my closest friend and my colleagues, he's not only Ukrainian, but he's also an Israeli citizen. So he's a Jew, a Jewish guy, and he was one of instructors. He spent a lot of time in Israeli army. He spent a lot of time as an officer in Israeli army, and now he's preparing Ukrainians for fighting against Russians. And he is also preparing guys from Azov Battalion. He has no any bad experience working with them. So as I think all this stuff, all this SS stuff and all other things, it's just some kind, for me, maybe I'm wrong, but for me it's just some kind of pose, just like in the United States some biker gangs use also such as symbolic for something, to do something, to demonstrate something that we are not, just like ours. Maybe Azov Battalion is the same thing as some kind of Hells Angels or something like that.
Got it. There are refugees fleeing many places with oppression and war, like places in the Middle East, but they've not really sparked such outrage or desire to help from the rest of the world as what is happening is in Ukraine. So I've heard from Palestinian friends and Syrians like, hey, what the hell? This is happening to us. Where was all this goodwill? There's a lot more sympathy seemingly for Ukraine. What do you make of Americans or Westerners being more sympathetic to your cause and maybe less so to others?
For me, the only one explanation in this, it's about all these wars in Middle East and Central Asia and Africa were and are really far away from the Western countries. But now, the closest rocket fire was about less than 25 kilometers from border of European Union. So this war is waging at the gates of Western world. This war is waging at the gates of NATO and at the gates of European Union. That's why Europeans and people of the West are more sympathetic to Ukrainian cause than to any other cause. And I'm so sorry, Jordan. I need to go. As you can, maybe you can listen, but my radio station is calling me to join my platoon.
No problem. I can't hear that, but that's no problem. I will let you go. I'm going to put links to your podcast and everything in the show notes here. I don't have that many other questions, or at least maybe something I can submit to you, and you could record a short video, and I can splice it in
I'll
here.
try to do it.
Is that okay? Okay. No rush. Thank you. Please stay safe. I hope to speak to you again soon. Thank you so much.